Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Twitter space on all things World App. I'm Stephen Smith, the head of protocol at Tools for Humanity. It's our third Twitter space in a row. So third week in a row, we're hosting these. A couple of weeks ago, we talked on ZKML. Last week, we talked about the orb design and development. And this week, we're going to talk about all things World App. So World App was announced earlier this week. You might have seen that, and is the first wallet built for the Worldcoin protocol. But before we get into the specifics of the app, let me introduce the Worldcoin project at a high level for those that might not be familiar. Worldcoin is building the world's largest identity and financial network as a public utility, giving ownership to everyone. And a key to giving ownership to everyone is, of course, Sybil resistance, as probably most folks on this call realize. So how do we accomplish that? Well, last week we talked about the design and development of the orb, which is key to being able to identify everyone as a unique human. And this week, we're going to talk about how that becomes very tangible. Like, how do you make that actually usable? And that leads us to the World app. So just a quick note, we'll leave some time at the end for audience questions. We'll do our best to do that. We should have time. So if you have any, just put them in the Twitter thread associated with the space. We'll pick those up throughout the call, and then we'll answer those at the end. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Smith, head of protocol at Tools for Humanity, and I'm joined today by a couple of individuals that have been, to say they've been instrumental in the development of the app would be an understatement, but I'll let them introduce themselves. We're joined today by Tiago and Philipp. So Tiago, you want to go first?
For sure. What's up? Great. Excited to talk, Stephen. I'm Tiago Sada. I'm head of product Tools for Humanity. That means I do a bunch of random stuff, including product management and design across our software products. One of the most fun ones in that is World App. So we've been working on this for quite a long time. Super excited to give a little bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes of like how we thought about this, what the process has been like, and where all of this is going.
Cool. All right. How about you, Philipp?
Yeah. Hey everyone. So I'm leading product engineering at TFH. I've been part of the project actually from the very beginning. And yeah, day to day, I'm focusing with Tiago on the app and with Stephen on protocol.
Cool. And as always, the folks we have on the call are usually very humble and understated. But as I mentioned, Tiago and Philipp have just been instrumental, not only in the app, but the project as a whole, the experts in what we're going to talk about today. Before we hop in, just a note, we're closing out a really big week this week for the Worldcoin project, Tools for Humanity. We announced the World app, which we're going to talk about in detail today, of course. But yesterday, we also announced that we're moving to Optimism prior to our mainnet launch. We're super excited about that. The superchain vision is one that resonates with all of us. It's something I've been personally looking at for a number of years, not superchain from Optimism, but the whole multi-chain, interchain thesis. And I think that's really going to unlock a new generation of Web3 apps in terms of composability and what you can do at a high scale and low cost in the future. Super excited about that. Last data point, we've got a new logo that came out this week. We kind of, semi-announced it on Twitter. I think there's going to be a blog post that discusses it in detail. But anyway, most of the feedback I've seen has been pretty positive. So anyway, a lot going on this week. So hopefully you're able to catch some of that. So jumping into the app, let's just start with the very basics. Like, why did we build the World app in the first place? What problems were we trying to solve?
Yeah. So I guess for context is Worldcoin started probably like 3 and some change years ago. And then 1.5 or something years ago, we started going around the world with the beta, right? Just like signing up people in different parts of the world. We went like really wide initially. So look to 30 countries. And part of onboarding to Worldcoin is you're onboarding people to crypto. But it turns out that like it's actually quite difficult to onboard people with some of the wallets that technical users like ourselves use, right? Like there's just like a lot going on and the self-custody and this and that. And then obviously none of those wallets supported Worldcoin and World ID and the orb anyways. And so what we realized was, at least to get things started, we were going to have to build like a super simple wallet so that at least something supported the orb and to be able to start onboarding users. And then, so we did that. And what we realized was that was something that was super necessary in the world because there was like 2 types of products. There was like products that had all of the important guarantees of like self-custody and privacy and all those things, but they were really hard to use. And they had a lot of things in there because they're super powerful. And on the other hand, you had like custodial products that were custodial services that had much nicer UX. They just could not interact with DeFi, and they were not self-custodial, and they were not as private as we liked. And over time, honestly, what was just like this little small app that we had hacked on to be able to run the WorldCoin beta just started growing, and like people loved it, and a bunch of people would start using it, even if it was only available in a few countries. And eventually, at some point, we just realized, like, you know what, like we have to turn this into a proper product. And so over the past few months, we worked on a full redesign of the app, which you can check out. It's been a lot of fun to work on that based on all of the learnings that we've had from people using the app in the few countries where it was available. And then finally now, this week, we were able to say, okay, this is ready to actually be announced as a proper product, release it around the world rather than just these few countries, and then just give people, even beyond the WorldCoin project, a really simple wallet that has all of the important guarantees so they can get started in the space.
Okay. All right. Very good. And as I noted at the beginning, this is like the first wallet for the WorldCoin protocol. But Philip, the protocol is designed in such a way that other wallets would be able to do very similar things, right?
Yeah, totally. It's also where the two parts of the wallet are interesting. The wallet itself has two major components. The one is it's an Ethereum wallet, or like the World app is an Ethereum wallet. At the same time, it is an identity wallet. And identity wallet in the sense that it supports WLD protocol. WLD protocol is a permissionless protocol. Anybody can generate their own key, generate their own zero-knowledge proofs in a way that are compatible with the protocol. And in the end, we'll even support that because we'll very soon, will publish a more polished library for doing such, which will be like a wallet kit. Right now, you could actually also do this. It's, as I said, permissionless protocol. All of the libraries that we use internally are open source. They're not well documented right now. We'll change that soon. And yeah, the other part, as I mentioned, Ethereum is of course permissionless already since a long time and since from the very beginning. So anybody is free to create their wallet, and we'll just one other Ethereum wallet.
Cool. Very good. Yeah. And I think one of the keys Tiago was sitting on, we started with just running around the world with the kind of a beta version, and then realized we need to turn this into like a highly usable app. And I think that's one of the large problems with crypto in general for people is usability. Sometimes wallets are almost something as simple as a wallet is even hard to figure out maybe what to do, especially if you don't live in the space day to day. If you're not a crypto Twitter native kind of person, they can be a little intimidating because you may or may not understand exactly what's going on. But that was one of the goals, obviously, was to have a simplistic design. But yeah, so let's move on. And so we talked about, kind of the...
Yeah, and what I would say
go
here,
ahead, Tiago.
Steven, is one of the, and like this, I guess will be a good segue, and it was not just about it being simple, but it was about being useful for normal people. I think there's a lot of things in the crypto space that like really cool technologies that people have been working on for like years and years. And like, actually a couple of those are like ready for mainstream, and they are like quite useful for like people in their day-to-day lives. And a lot of the way we approach this was to say, okay, instead of having an app or like a wallet that supports everything and anything, it's like super neutral. We said like, actually, no, let's build this in an opinionated way. Let's not even call it a wallet. This is an app. And let's take little bits and pieces across the ecosystem, whether it's the WorldCoin ecosystem or the Ethereum ecosystem, that we think are important use cases that matter for normal people's day-to-day lives. And just expose those, right, in a super opinionated way. Right. And so that also means like it's not for everyone, right? But for most people, for normal people, that was also super important for us. That was very simple, very familiar, but also very useful in your normal life day to day.
Right. Yeah. And I know Philip and I worked on a total segue here, Ruby on Rails back in the day, which was also, that was a mark of opinionated software, of how to build web apps. And I totally love that paradigm for being opinionated, making it usable by everyday users, which kind of was a great segue into some of the features. What are some of the key features of the World app? What can it do? And yeah, Tiago or Philip, either one of you want to hop in and chat about that?
Yeah. So I think I still broke it down super nicely, which is there's a bunch of identity features. There's a bunch of financial or like wallet related features. And then more and more, there will actually be like a really interesting overlap between those. And so with WorldCoin, like everything starts with identity, right? WorldCoin is a large network of real people, to put it plainly. And so That means that first thing you can do with the app is get your World ID. You can optionally verify that with an orb or with a phone number. And then in the future, there'll be other verification methods. And then you can use that World ID, right? And so the app has built in all of these libraries to be able to use your World ID with its zero knowledge proofs that are generated on device. And so you can use it to signing onto websites will prove you're a real person, right? So imagine that like Twitter implemented signing with Worldcoin. Well, then you would be able to use Worldcoin or your World ID on the app to sign into Twitter and then get like a blue check mark automatically because it knows you're a real person. Right? And so just a few weeks ago, we announced the SDK to make that possible. It's still on a wait list, so it's not widely available to developers yet, but people can apply on Worldcoin's website for that. And then on the wallet side of things, I would say there's mainly two buckets. There is what we call like money, which is just like digital stable coins. So right now that starts with dollars and then hopefully soon other stable coins. But the experience of that is basically like a mini bank account. You can just save and like store dollars. You can send them to any friend around the world for free. We also let you even send to phone contacts, not just to crypto addresses. And then the second bucket is like what we call the crypto bucket, which is more like your volatile assets, so like your Bitcoin, Ethereum. And so you can explore those type of tokens. You can learn about them. If you have a verified World ID, you can actually complete some like quests to be able to earn a little bit of those. And then you can track their prices and things like that over time. And then the last thing is for people that are in countries where it's supported during the beta, so not in the US, people can claim beta shares of Worldcoin or beta Worldcoin tokens using their World ID. So your World ID outside of the US and outside of a few other countries gives you the right to claim some amount of Worldcoin every week. And so you can also do that through the app.
Cool. And how do we handle, it's a great set of features. And by the way, this one is called the World app and not the Worldcoin wallet, or it's got a lot of capabilities in it. And there was a quote I've always attributed to Guy Kawasaki, who is a technical evangelist, worked in marketing over at Apple for a number of years, that said, the mark of a great piece of software was that it was and I'm going to butcher the quote, but here's the gist, very easy to get going with. But then when your needs became a little more complex than basics, you find the complexity you now need has been in the product the whole time. It just hasn't been in your way. And whether people know that quote or not, it has largely shaped like modern UX around mobile and web apps to a degree, but mobile apps in particular. So, one of the things around usability is we really don't make people deal with gas in the app. So how are we handling like gas and dealing with gas costs? And gas costs, I'm sure everyone knows, is just what's the cost of doing business in the blockchain world, especially Ethereum. So how are we dealing with, essentially free gas in this case?
First of all, gas is like, for anybody who doesn't know right now, but it's like the concept of how fees are calculated on Ethereum. So pretty much there's not like a fixed fee per transaction, but some transaction cost more, some transaction cost less. And gas is like a way to have a dynamic pricing of those fees. And this already sounds complicated to a few people. And probably this is already something that has been limiting adoption to a large extent because you have to worry about setting something correctly, adapting it to certain kind of situations that are not even in your hand. At some point, Ethereum is just overloaded by other people that are trading dog coins and or whatever. And then suddenly your transaction takes longer or your transaction doesn't get included and you need to do something. So we didn't like this experience. And I think this is something that actually Web3 can learn a lot from Web2 companies, right? People usually don't have to worry anymore about slow payments or doing something which requires them keeping track that their PayPal transfer actually arrives. So we fully abstracted this away. And technologically, what enables this is account abstraction, or in our case, smart contract wallets. And we use therefore safes, or like formally closes safe. It's a multi-sig contract, which allows you to delegate the payment of those fees to a third party. Meanwhile, you're still signing the transaction as you as a user. So the transaction is still, or like the key which signs the transaction is still self-custodial. But in the end, somebody else will submit it for you, the transaction, and will pay whatever it costs to submit it, and will handle like resubmission and increasing it yeah, that's what we started to build out on the infrastructure side. On the backend side, pretty much what nobody sees right now if you're using the app, but it's a major part of our kind of, yeah.
I think it's important to point out here that like, and any wallet can do this, right?
Yeah.
Like any wallet can choose to say, okay, I'm going to do this type of abstraction to like subsidize cost for or like gas for users. But the really unique thing of like why we're able to really double down on that is because of World ID. The problem here is you do not want people doing 100,000 transactions in a month, even if they're like legitimate. You do not want to subsidize all of those fees, and especially you do not want to get botted, right? And so that's usually the challenge with systems like this, where you say, for users that do like a couple of transfers per month, I want to make them free, but not for power users or not for like bots.
Right.
And so World ID is actually like the thing that allows us to do that, because people are verifying their World ID through different methods. Then we're able to use that to say, okay, you know what, if you have this level of verification, then you get like X amount of transfers free per month. And so if you are a power user and you want to do like a lot more, or if you are a bot and you just want to like screw with us, then no, you're going to pay for your own gas. So that is just the type of place where it's not very obvious, but actually things like World ID just make a huge difference, even when you're building financial products.
Yep. Great point. And prior to joining WorldCoin, I was at the Electric One company for a while, and we worked on the Zcash cryptocurrency. And I remember when the project, it hasn't launched officially, mainnet launch in terms of launch. But when the WorldCoin project kind of soft launched, like one of the things we really were interested in at ECC was kind of, the onboarding aspects, the Sybil resistance aspects, and what that could potentially just bring to the industry. So yeah, just phenomenal that we're actually leveraging what we built to deliver a more seamless UX for people that makes it simpler. So, it's a great segue into kind of the next thing we wanted to talk about was a little bit more technical, like some of the technical decisions and challenges we face. Before we do that, we've got some audience questions coming in already. But just a reminder, if you have some of those, just drop them in the thread and we'll pick those toward the end. Should have a few minutes to do that. But in terms of technical decisions and challenges that we face, we have right now, we're getting close to, I think, 1.7 million signups, roughly 1.6 plus signups already. And our plans for scale are, we'll talk about growth in a few minutes, but just in terms of scale, that's pretty big. I think we're, Tiago, you probably know this number off the top of your head, like number of the fourth largest self-hosted wallet out there today. Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe higher.
Maybe third. Okay, by now. But anyway, obviously, what infrastructure does it take to support that? Because again, we have plans for enormous growth. So Philip, you mentioned account abstraction, things along those lines, but what are some of the other technical decisions and challenges that we faced along the way?
Yeah. So account abstraction was definitely a large decision. We actually started off with just having a UA wallet, so like externally owned address, as it's called, where you actually have to, as a user, have to pay for the fees, and it turned out to not work very well. So this was definitely one of the major decisions and migrations we've done. On the other hand, like this now puts the responsibility on like our infrastructure to make sure every transaction that a user sends actually gets sent, versus in the other case, the user would submit it directly to the blockchain. So it definitely puts a lot of burden or like responsibility on the backend side. And this gets like to two interesting questions, like how do you handle it in the short term while scaling? And then also right, how do you make sure that we're not becoming like a central bottleneck, right? And so the first part is pretty much the first question, answer to your question would be, there's some more sophisticated transaction sending logic that's usually happening for a wallet. So for example, the backend is automatically sharding between, and sharding is like switching over between different sender accounts. You can send from more than one account at the same time, which basically increases throughput of sending. And there's a lot of other like minor tweaks to make sure that the transaction actually gets included to keep track of it. But I think the more interesting part is actually how do you make sure that this is not becoming a bottleneck, and also this part can actually decentralize, or at least not become like a central point of failure. And there actually this Ethereum improvement proposal called account abstraction comes in, which tries to standardize some APIs around it. So not only like we would propose like a relayer, as it's called, where you send your transaction to, but also other people can operate it similar to blockchain nodes. And this will be one of the other major technical migrations or like challenges in the future to actually have decentralization on that layer, have like standards. It's all very early in the community as well. And yeah, this is usually now as EIP 4337 or ERC 4337.
Right. And, in terms of technical challenges, like what about working like on, there's a gamut of phones out there, right? There's people that have the latest and greatest Android or iPhone, which are usually really powerful. They usually have a lot of memory and a pretty fast chip. Usually. But what about, what kind of challenges are there around supporting phones that may be like several years old? What were some things?
Yeah, sure. To actually be a World app, you have to also support the World, and the World is not all iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's like there's a very long tail of devices which are like very like low on memory, low on computation. And for example, in the case of generating zero knowledge proofs, which we have to do for WLD, the problem is even amplified, right? It's a rather expensive computation, much more than just like signing a transaction or blowing a button in the UI, which I don't know, does some animation. But it's something we actually had to work on to actually bring to 98% of all phones out there. And really like a few years ago, this would not have been possible just for improvements in the cryptography, improvements in, computation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, proof system. Yeah. We've, again, have ever into that in the past. Just the improvements in proof systems, the ability to run in mobile environments has really helped. But you still have to, like you were saying, Philip, you still have to be very cognizant of the environment you're going to be running in. And it is an app for the world. So we have to be cognizant of that long tail that we find out there. Okay, great. So great technical insights into some of the things we face. So let's talk about like growth and volume and maybe what's next for a few minutes. And then we'll pick up a few questions. So Tiago, we announced the World app earlier in the week, and we jumped at one point to the number one crypto app in the App Store. And I have to say that was just pretty phenomenal. I don't know if it was expected or not, but it was a great surprise. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think just like it's a very fresh take on a wallet. And I think we've grown accustomed to it because we see it every day and we play with it every day. But I think that for like most people that just have never seen a wallet like this, it was very surprising. I would say it definitely has a very striking design, but I think just people found it surprising. I will say, we were expecting to be a number one crypto app on the App Store, but like in 6 months, not like day two. So we'll see if we're able to maintain that. But generally, it's just very cool to see that people want to try it. And it'll be very interesting to see all of the feedback that we get. But yeah, I think it's just honestly being willing to do things differently is mostly, at least the feedback that I've gotten so far.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Very good. And I want to talk about, expand a little bit. This is all about World app. We want to do as deep a dive as we can there and cover a lot of bases. What about partners and what role partners will play? Again, Philip pointed out, this is open, like anyone can build a Worldcoin app or a World app. We're just the first for the protocol. What about partners?
Yeah.
What role are we expecting there from partners and what are the opportunities?
I mean, it's huge, right? We're building essentially a global passport and a global bank account that's like all digital on like 100 plus countries. And we did this in a year, right? You just can't do that without Ethereum and like a bunch of different projects, right? That's just like simply not possible in like the old world. And like the reality of things is like, yes, we've done a lot of work with the Worldcoin protocol and World ID, and that's a really important new primitive. But the World app, it goes beyond that, right? And so whether you're talking about Ethereum, powering all of the computation and handling transactions, something as simple as like buying and selling tokens, that's Uniswap behind the scenes, right? Or you have other partners that allow users to deposit and withdraw from the app. And those are the ones that have to comply with different regulations around the world. We use ENS to make transactions easier between users, right? So then instead of having to use like these really long addresses, you can just use like usernames. And so there's a bunch of these protocols around the world. Even the wallets themselves that Philipp was talking about, those are by a project called Stave, formerly known as Nosin Staves. And so the reality is like we're just standing here on the shoulders of giants, and we're putting it up on a nice package and saying like, hey, this is how we think you should use it. And we're supercharging that with World ID and Worldcoin and the Worldcoin token. But the reality of things is like probably 90 or like 80% of the functionality, which comes from the magic of Ethereum's composability.
Very good. No, Exactly. And that's, again, we'll have a separate space on optimism at some point, but that's one of the things that's super interesting about this superchain thesis and composability in general, next generation of Web3 apps. We talked about, again, it's the World app, not the WorldCoin wallet. So it does a lot of things besides just the wallet functionality. But what do you think in 5 years? That's a long time. That's a long horizon in crypto years in particular. But what about in 5 years? What do we think we might see in an app or a composable app, something where some of this is rolled up?
Yeah. Look, I can talk about World app. I think that there will be like many different takes of many different wallets and applications that will be leveraging World ID and WorldCoin. But at least when it comes to World app, it will always be focused on just like the easiest, simplest experience for normal people. And I mean, the whole reason the WorldCoin project was started was because we think the world is changing a lot with AI, right? And these identity finance are the first two tools that we see will be necessary for normal people in their day-to-day lives, just to their best in the age of AI. But there's a bunch of other tools that we think are important in that new phase of history. And so what I expect will happen is that building on top of proof of personhood, right, and knowing that you have this really large network of real people, there's a bunch of different problems that you need to solve and a bunch of new opportunities once you have advanced AI systems. And so I don't want to spoil too much, but some people sometimes call these super apps. I don't love the name, but the World app has a world of possibilities. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so we're doing pretty good on time. Again, just a reminder, we do have several questions coming in, so we may try to leave a couple extra minutes for questions toward the end, but great things coming in. So what we're currently sitting at, again, roughly about 1.7 million signups, I think. What are some of the numbers we're expecting? Philipp, we've been involved in some of that modeling, let's just say over the next 12 months. What are we targeting, you think, in terms of user in the WorldCoin app or the World app, sorry?
I think Tiago should be more familiar with those numbers, but I do have clear numbers right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can talk about what we've seen so far, and it's like really easy to project out. So far, about 1.6 million people have signed up in general. About 500,000 of those are using it every month, which is really exciting because a lot of these people signed up a while ago. But like even more exciting, 100,000 or like 120,000 or something like that of those are using it on a normal day. And so on a usual day, what on the app is there's somewhere around like 60,000 transactions that happen. So there's a bunch of different types of transaction, whether that's claiming WorldCoin or sending tokens to a friend or swapping. And then there's about 25,000 World ID proofs or World ID checks that are generated. So that's not 25,000 people getting a World ID, that's 25,000 people using their World ID every day with this setup that we've talked about with the 0 hours proofs and all that. And this week has been crazy, right? We've had like many more number of signups that we usually have. And like that's expected, right? Because before it was in a handful of countries, now it's around the world. Look, I think that if right now we're at like 0.5 million users, I wouldn't be surprised if there's many million users by the end of the year that have in general tried the app. And then many people as well that are using it every day.
Okay. All right. Very good. We're going to shift to audience questions. So again, if you haven't gotten them in already, go ahead and put those in. We'll do our best to get through as many as we can before we bump up on. The first question is, let's see. I'm scrolling back. Oh, it's from Cake. It said, would this app be neutral and work for people regardless of their location, nationality?
A great question. I think we are trying to make it available in as many places as possible, right? But at the end of the day, the World app, unlike WorldCoin protocol, World app is a product by a specific company, and there's just like different legal implications around the world that we have to like adhere to, right? That means that it's not possible to offer World app in every country, but it is available in more than 100 countries today, and we're working really hard to bring it to as many possible. Now that's different from World ID and the WorldCoin protocol, which are just like open and permissionless systems that are running on the blockchain. And so I think part of why it's important that the protocol supports any clients or any wallets is that different people around the world can build different experiences, but they can also get things like licenses that might be needed in certain markets where we'll probably not be able to get all of those in the short term. And so markets that are like trickier, we'll just have to defer to other people to build for.
Right. Okay. Nope. Great answer. All right. Next question. Let's see. And this is coming from soon to be Dr. Alexander. So congratulations on that. It says, he actually has a comment and then question says, already thought of applications outside of money, for example, healthcare. Having an encryption key on the patient side that allows access to their medical file by a doctor. If access is approved, then a new key is generated to access that info. Is that the end? Is the end goal that global? I can actually answer part of that. So it'd probably be, if you haven't heard the recording we did on ZKML, which was again I think it was 2 weeks ago exactly today. We talked about that a little bit. And that also plays into some things, Philip, when we're talking about scale on the different mobile phones that are out there and the improvements in zero knowledge proving systems that have occurred over the years and that will continue to improve over time. The ability for a patient or a person to maintain their information on their phone and disclose what they need to disclose to, like a healthcare provider, for example, via zero knowledge technology is a direction that I think we'll see in a lot of areas, but absolutely in healthcare, especially when you look at even like AI models that are training on healthcare data to try to determine, if you're, let's just say hypothetically, you have the potential because of something in your healthcare records or your background to develop a certain condition. It's a way that can analyze your records without you having to give access of your records to others. So I think absolutely that's, as we look longer term, those are the type things that we'll see. Great question. Okay, let me move on. The next question is from, looks like Jake Cleveland. Said, I missed the part about what is paying for the gas fees for verified humans. So where's that funding coming from? Yeah, Philip, you just want to recap that briefly and go back through a little bit of that?
Yeah. First of all, as Tiago said, the free gas right now, it's still for every Worldcoin user. Like there will be different WLD user. There will be different limits based on your World ID in the future, just to not get botted. Right now, this applies for all transactions. Funding is funding of Tools for Humanity, the operating company. This might change in a way that we will, in some point, switch to a model where people can pay in stable coins, the fee, have some flat fee, which is much easier to understand by people. So I think there will be very much variations of what we see with this fee model, right? But as that for now, it's free gas for all humans.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of like where it comes from, look, I think like it's very weird on crypto, but actually when you think about like Web2 companies, right? When you're like going to sign into a website and they send you a text message, like that text message like costs money, right? But like that company is covering that cost because they are betting that they're going to be able to make it up somewhere else, right? And this is not any different, right? The app will probably have things like fees when you're like swapping, right? Or there's different ways wallets to make money. Mm-hmm. And there'll probably be something like, okay, certain features for power users are monetized. And you are betting as a company that with the money that you can generate from those, you can subsidize things like the gas fees for the rest of people, right? Mm-hmm. It's very common. It's just like you would pay server costs or Twilio costs or any type of cost that any Web2 or Web3 company would. This is not different.
Very good. Okay. So actually, it looks like there's been several questions about orb availability in Mexico and Germany. So we actually have an orb world tour. That's currently in New York City. It's going to be in Mexico City and Berlin as well. And there's a blog about that on worldcoin.org/blog, I believe. So you can check it out, there. But yes, Mexico and Germany definitely on the Orb World Tour. A question, I'm not sure I quite understand it. It says, why private key is not used in the wallet? So I don't know, Tiago.
Maybe this is targeting towards the question about smart contracts.
Oh.
Smart contract wallets and something I mentioned before.
Okay.
So there's actually two people sign a transaction in this model, right? Mm-hmm. You as a user, you sign a transaction locally as some kind of some inner transaction. And then the relayer or like our backend infrastructure signs it again and an outer transaction and puts it on the blockchain or Ethereum. So really two people have to sign, and to actually touch your wallet or like your money, your signature as a user is required. The backend really doesn't do anything with it. Nobody can do anything with your funds, only if you as a user sign it. This makes it fully self-custodial. It's really just paying for the fees is done in the outer transaction, which the backend does. Every user has a private key and signs transactions. The short answer.
Okay, great. Another question, I think we talked about this early on. It says the firstly reason to develop this app. So yeah, I think that was the thing we went over first. Tiago, you want a quick recap on that one?
Yeah, the gist of it is there wasn't anything out there that was as simple for normal people to be able to onboard. And so we just built it as like a small test to be able to do that. And then they just started going like crazy. The other side of things was there was obviously no wallet when we first started that supported WorldCoin and WorldID. And so I think the mix of people were just really struggling with other wallets, and we just needed to like bootstrap the ecosystem is why we built it. How much it's grown, like honestly, it's been like really surprising for everyone, but it's been really cool to see people love the product throughout the beta. And so now this is why we're so excited to actually finally be able to give people around the world access to it.
Yeah. And you and I were chatting earlier this week. The World app, WorldCoin the project becomes very tangible to people at that point. Like it's something in their hand and they can see when we talk about Sybil resistance and World ID, you can actually see it in your hand. So one more question and then, we'll wrap up. It says, have you held any bug bounties? So I haven't been involved with that. Tiago, I don't know. I know we've done a number of hackathons. We have some going on right now, but in terms of bug bounties specifically, Philipp or Tiago, any insights into that?
There will be a program starting very soon.
Yeah.
Already right now. Please reach out if you find anything. And but an official one will start in a few weeks from now.
Okay. Yeah. I thought I saw something about that in terms of trying to determine the scope, et cetera. So yes, we will have some. That's the last question where we have about 1 minute left. First of all, just want to thank everyone for joining. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks for listening in. Thanks so much, Tiago and Philipp, for taking time to hop on the space. We're at ETH Global in Lisbon right now. There is a hackathon going on, and I'd love to have you participate in that. In terms of staying in touch with the WorldCoin project, there's the WorldCoin Twitter account, Tools for Humanity Twitter account. We have Discord, et cetera. Yeah, if question about, I guess one did pop in about the bug bounty, we will be kicking it off formally. We will have some announcements around that, but Discord is a great way to get in touch with us if you do see something you have a question about or something that doesn't look quite right to you. So again, thanks so much everyone for your time today. We know, that there's a lot going on in the world. You have a lot of options. So we appreciate you joining us. And again, thanks Tiago and Philipp for making time.
Awesome. Thank you all. And if you want to try the app, you can go on world.app and let us know what you think.